when Alex and I first talked, I thought to myself, wait, I'm not an expert in advocacy. I mean, I've always kind of been an advocate, right? In the early 80s, I was like pushing for, I was a big champion of diversity because I was in the HR, field at that time. And I was pushing for, feel like I was introduced LGBTQ stuff when people were like shocked that I would actually, that would be something that we would actually explore in diversity workshops and things like that. So I've always been carrying those torches for things like that. And another one, my passion of organizational culture. So the toss-up was between, do I talk about one of my areas of expertise? So my background, basically, I spent the last 40 years in the area of organizational improvement, started out in human resources, then kind of kept on moving into talent management and organizational development, org improvement, strategic planning, and all culture change and all those things. I'm an executive coach. I coach executives pretty much all different parts of the world, South America, Saudi Arabia, here. And the other side, flip side of that, is that I spent the last probably 30 years studying creation, manifestation modalities. And I've done every workshop on the planet on how do you create new realities. So we were going back and forth because I feel like people who are going into advocacy, some may be building organizations, and so therefore understanding about how do I build an effective organization, and others need to manifest results with velocity. So we decided that I would talk about the organization piece. I'll try to weave a little bit in about the manifestation. I'm actually glad I came right behind Molly, because Molly covered a lot of the sort of entrepreneurial startup beingness types of things. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about organizational frameworks. This is what I'm going to share is, there's some complexity to it. I will share a couple of resources or books that I will type in after I finish speaking. So I'm going to kind of give it high level, and I'm always happy to support you, after this. So, and by the way, my business partner is Mary Campbell. So some of the things I'm going to show you are things that she and I do together. And I'm also partnered with a number of people here like Martin and Matthew and Ariana and others on the manifestation parts of it. So they know some of this, but I will say that some of it might sound a little radical to you. And because new quantum ways of producing results are radical as compared to how we do it, as I say, in 3D. Okay, so with that said, let me share the screen. And where is that? Okay, hold on a moment. Oh, so can you guys see this slide?
Yeah, it's a little small, but
let me put
there.
it in.
Yeah.
Let me put it in.
Presenter mode would be better. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you see that now? Do you see it?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. Okay. So, let me start by saying that most organizations are what I would call disintegrated, meaning that all the parts that you see here are not integrated. And organizations pay a huge price for that. And what I've been working on for the last 40 years is figuring out, ways to integrate all of these together. And to give you an idea about the challenge of that, I mean, that's at the highest level, right? All those pieces. And this is one we did for healthcare. That's why you see integrated patient care. But these are, and this doesn't even include everything, but these are the kinds of things that if you're building an organization, you kind of got to worry about all of this, right? Now, this one, this one shows you at another cut the way that things like the strat plan, department goals, performance expectations, recruiting, job descriptions, all the pieces, they sort of all connect with one another.
I've just asked
Roberto, could you go back to that last slide and read some of the things that are on it and describe it a little bit more? That would be really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. So I'll say it this way, okay? So in an organization, even though I'm going to say this linearly, it really isn't linear, and depending on where you start with the organization, if it's a startup or if it's a mid-sized company or been around for 100 years, you may start in different places. But at the very top of things, vision and strategy come first, okay? If you are heading to Greenland, you need to have very specific coordinates than if you're going to Costa Rica, right? So vision and strategy comes first. Now, we don't have this in that order quite, but once you have your vision and strategy, you need to align your culture. So up here is vision, down here is, if I were to simplify this model, I'd say up here is vision, down here is culture, it's the foundation, and it's really comes second. Over here is talent management, your people, and all the programs that you built for them. Over here is your leadership, and in the middle is your brand, okay? But to speak to these very specifically, at the top is vision and strategy, right? The other areas that you need to worry about is all the HR pieces and the talent management pieces. Talent management is a new term that's come up for the aspects of human resources that are less transactional. We're not talking comp benefits and those kinds of things. We're talking about organizational development and leadership and planning for succession and things like that. Moving further down, and again, these are not in particular order, integrating all the parts of your organization, integrating this type of thing, but also integrating your human resources department with your accounting department, like when all of those need to work together. Your brand, because there's two levels of brand, the parent brand, which is the corporate brand, and then the employment brand that shows people what you're like. And you have to, most people don't really communicate their brands as they really are, which is why when I go work for a company, I'm like, wait a second, this is not what I saw in your shiny brochures. So the rule of thumb that I've heard at conferences is your brand 80% has to reflect what you have and 20% aspirational in terms of your collateral materials, your website, et cetera. As we keep going down, performance and accountability is how you manage people's performance, how you lead them, manage performance. And then cultural curation is what I talked about earlier. Culture, the famous expression is culture eats strategy for lunch. And I think it eats it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, actually. And most more and more CEOs are getting that, but most CEOs don't get that. So they focus a lot on strategy, tactics, the finance pieces and all that, and they ignore culture, and they pay a huge price for that, because culture is the soil in which those little people plants grow and where the goals grow. And if you're not looking at your culture today, given where we are in the world with the Great Resignation and so on, you are going to be disrupted as an organization, okay? The next one is governance. How does the board work with the senior leadership? How does decision-making happen? And then that whole finance project management piece. This is a kind of a specialized slide because we have a third partner who actually lives in the Middle East. He handles the governance, finance, project management pieces. So again, this gives you an idea of all the pieces that an organization needs to look at. Now, because we don't have time to go over all of these, I'm going to, and this just gives you an example of a typical engagement. This happens to be one that, Mary and I and Riff, our other partner, do to give you an idea about the things you do. And this organization only has about 120 people. And we're doing all of this stuff to help build their organization. And it's a lot of chaos because they're practically a startup. So this gives you an idea of all the stuff you do have to do to build an organization. And, if you're a 3-person organization or a 4-person, obviously you have to do what's important. We have a concept called plumbing before poetry, where you got to hit the pain points, hit the compliance, hit the things, and then some of these other things like the culture curation, the strategy and all that are the poetry, but you have to do it all. Because if any of these pieces are missing, then you have a gap somewhere. And then the idea is that as you do this work, you integrate all of it. If I have a strategic plan, then out of that strategic plan needs to cascade down people's performance expectations. And if I'm hiring somebody new, it has to connect with the goals that came from the strategic plan and how I'm hiring people. And that has to then connect with, how I'm doing performance management and succession planning. So I said from the beginning, this was pretty complex, which is why most organizations struggle and many don't survive. And these are, an organization could take to do an organizational transformation could take anywhere from 3 to 5 years or more. Okay, so this is not an overnight proposition. We are actually, even us with these people, it was 2 it was too ambitious for this organization. And we had to, because they couldn't get it all done because they have so many challenges that we are actually sliding this out another 6 months. Now, one of the most important things, and people some of these people on this call will laugh because they know that my like broken record mantra is that one of the most, the charter of an organization is its mission, its vision, its values, its principles. Most people do a pretty good job of articulating mission. They do a pretty good job of articulating values, and most of them do a terrible job of articulating the vision. Here, before your very eyes, is what I consider to be an incredibly well-articulated vision for an organization. They stood out, I think it was 5 years in the future, because this was done around 2000, and, I don't know, 7 or something, 6, 5 years in the future, and they said, what happened? So the magic parts of this is that language is an act of creation. As you speak it, it comes into existence, okay? Now, a lot of people, to Molly's point about the affirmations, a lot of people have little post-it notes and affirmations, and changes are happening very quickly. Why? Because there's a lot more to it than just putting the affirmation up. However, language is an act of creation, and you've heard the term first there's the word. Well, speaking things into existence is very important. Now, part of the challenge that comes in is that a lot of times people are speaking things that they don't believe, which is why when we create a vision for an organization, we sit in the room after the vision is created and say, okay, what do you think about the possibilities of creating this? And immediately, people's limiting beliefs, why they think it won't happen, start to come out. We write those all down, and then we start talking about them so that we can create an architecture of belief across the organization, so that there aren't people, 5 people here saying this is never going to happen, because the results so this is from the transformational sort of magic piece. The results in your life are the vectoring sum of the beliefs in your life. Your beliefs about money, your beliefs about health, your beliefs about all these things, those were programmed by the time you were 8 years old, okay? The beliefs in an organization are the vectoring sum of the beliefs of everyone in the organization, including the legacy beliefs that have been handed down. So the other elements of that are that in order for you to have the power to speak something into existence, there are certain elements or dimensions of your being, and I'm getting a little bit into Molly's so eloquent to discuss this, but I'm just going to give you three or four pillars. One is integrity, right? Are you your word? Are you living into a powerful context? Do you say what you said you were going to do? The other one is responsibility, and there's a continuum. Hold on, let me check my time. I'm sorry. There's a continuum of responsibility from victim all the way to I create my own reality. And I'm standing in a construct called that if something's not working in the organization, I'll take responsibility for that. That is a very tough one, but the more you stand in that construct, and then right in the middle is it takes 2 to tango. I got to do my part, but you didn't do yours. And so, there's tons of finger pointing in victim. There's a lot of finger pointing in it takes 2 to tango. And in I'm going to take accountability that if something went wrong in this project, I could have done 50 things that might have changed the course of the course of reality. Okay, so responsibility is the second construct, or what I call pillar of power. First pillar of power was integrity. Second pillar of power, responsibility. Third pillar of power is authenticity, right? Being authentic, being true to yourself. Not, the authenticity piece is I show up authentically. I don't know. There's different ways of slicing authenticity, but it's basically just being who you really are, and not someone that you're not. And the fourth pillar is generosity. That is a pillar of power. The extent to which you are generous and giving and helping and supportive and loving increases your attraction factor, right? So those 4 elements of integrity, responsibility, authenticity, and generosity powers up your ability to say X and have X fall out of your mouth with velocity, okay? So I'm at 15 minutes, and I know this is 40 years of information that I've packed into 15 minutes. And by the way, the other thing that I would recommend is that you bring down vision to the level of, you probably won't read this, but to the level of key result areas. So when you have a strat plan, if you have technology, create a vision for it. It will produce a new reality for you, okay? One of my teachers says that 5 minutes of visualization equals 20 hours of person action, okay? So I will stop sharing, and I know that was a lot of information that I threw at you, but any questions?
Such good conversation, Roberto. This was huge, and I really appreciate it. And I think that you highlighted some really key areas that I think that a lot of people may have gone past. So certainly, like you mentioned, if people want to reach out to you later to get a little bit more in depth on any of those points, I encourage you guys to do so.
Yeah, and I would say if you want to get a book that kind of would get you started on the whole language as an act of creation, buy Language in the Pursuit of Happiness. That's a book, Language in the Pursuit of Happiness, and it gives you powerful languaging, creative languaging, okay? If you want to know about managing organizations, Holacracy. It's the new sort of self-managed teams, decision-making push down the organization, and I'll write these all in the and if you want to know about vision and how to set context into an organization, The Art of Possibility. Okay, and one more, which is Diagnosing and Changing Organizational Culture, which I'm going to put all of this, which is to me the best book. I'm a professor at USC. I teach culture, so this is our Bible. And if you want to know how to build organizational cultures, this is your best. It's based on studies of hundreds of culture models. And with that, I will turn it over to